Okay, hello YouTube. I'm working on something that I started before with some magnetos, and I have had on the Bedini rotating SSG. I had a flywheel with one of these magnetos and had some sparks, but now I made a bit bigger flywheel. I made it myself with strong magnets, with neodymium magnets. I made, instead of one on the wheel, I made three. I had to make the wheel a bit bigger to get the same velocity so that they really ignited. Only what I'm doing now is not using the secondary high voltage side, but I'm using the primary only fuel winding side. And the fun thing is that it's working just like with the Bedini. It's giving a nice sharp spark, and I'm using them as a generator. And at the moment that I have sufficient speed, the unit will make somehow, there's some electronics in there, at least it must be. It's shorting out a circuit when it has a certain voltage and at a certain time, and it gives a spike. And at the moment that it gives a spike, I'm getting some nice energy from it. And the funny thing is that I do not have a lot of lenz affected then. So if I charge a battery with that, I hardly have any lenz effect, but I do get the energy out. So that's very interesting. So let's show something. Oh, by the way, I removed a lot of the iron. These things consist out of 3 parts of iron. I only use the middle part, it's enough, because I have very strong magnets. So these little magnetos here only have the middle part, and I even grinded off that a little, so there's only a little iron in there. Okay, enough of that. Now let's start this thing up. I made it so that I now run at around 1000 RPM, and actually 800 is already enough to generate a spark. I configured it so that I have two of the 8 coils in pairs, so that way I use less input amps, and I also have a little lower RPMs, but that's not a problem. Spin it up here. Okay, this is the Bedini part, channel 1. Adjust it a little. It's now at 1 amp. Now a bit more. Let's see where we are. It is running now at it's getting to 700 RPM, so 700. So around 800 I'm getting the first spikes. And as you can see it here, this is just to see how the Bedini part is running. This is charging this battery, which is already charged, but it's not even a battery, so it doesn't mind. It's just I'm using it as a dump now. Okay, this is the other channel. You can already see the beginning, some sparks. So that's that's because I don't have the probe connected. This is my lamp. It's just beginning to flicker. And it's the scope. If I only use one part of the probe, it's already enough. So yeah, getting some spikes here. Now we're getting some good spikes. Look at that. And now I'm only using one part of the probe. It's not connected to Earth. So I'm now having two of these magnetos. Both have a bridge rectifier on it. I don't use that. I can use this lamp on both. But what I actually want to do is charge the battery and show that the lens is not affected a lot. So if I put this on here, the probe, you can see if I put it on the minus or on the plus, it doesn't matter because it's radiant and you can pick it up everywhere. In fact, I just have to keep it here. It will be enough. Okay, these are the spikes, really good spikes. As you can see, the lamp is coming on more and more. I'm now at running it a little more than 1 amp. I'm at 826. No, it's not. It should be a little over 1 amp. Very little. So I do have some lens now because of this lamp. It's going up, I think. It's around 827 RPMs. Okay, a little more about theory. I have this flywheel with a north and a south magnet close together. I have that 3 times. Only one would be sufficient, but the more the better. Not that you need less RPMs because the frequency is not important. It's only giving more pulses, but the moment that you get the pulse has to do with the velocity of this wheel. So you need a lot of speed, and at the moment I need at least 800 RPMs. What will happen is the signal, which is like first get a little negative, then there's coming a positive, and at about here the electronics in the device here is somehow shorting it or something, and it's giving a spike, and then it goes back and goes down a little, and then at a certain point I get this all over again and get spike again, and this I want to use, and I want to have as much spikes as possible. This signal will be here around maybe 5-6 volts. So if I put on my lamp, there's just little amps. It's not a lot of power, so the lamp is not very bright. The moment that I get the spike, when it turns on, so at low RPM there is no spike, then at the moment the spike turns on, the wheel is not affected in speed or anything, but the lamp is immediately much brighter. So there's really some extra energy in there, which is at no cost. When I charge a battery with this signal, I'm using only this part, since this is a 12 volt already, the battery. This is using a very high voltage and very short time and almost no amps. So in theory I wouldn't have a lot of lens effect, which in the practice shows that it is true. So when I use more of these units, it would become very interesting, because if I only use these parts and I usually create a lot of spikes, then it should be possible to charge my battery quite fast at little cost. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to do next. Disconnect the lamp. I'm really hoping I can destroy it. Okay, so this is at 245 and it's now going 246. It will rise more. Now you can see its strobe. I also have some negative pulses here. And you can also see there's a sort of wave. It's a sort of AM signal that's modulated by the pulses. As you can see well. Anyway, now battery is going up. It's a 10 amp hour. Very good battery. It's now very slowly going up. And the RPMs, which were 827 I think, is now going up. So you can see that lens, because the radiant part is not generating a lot of lens because there's no amps involved. So I'm running at a little more than 1 amp, charging this battery, and I'm also charging this battery very slowly, but I don't have any lens, so I can put some additional magnetos on there, which I will do. Then I can generate some more power. And in fact I can really, if I put 10 on them, I think it won't be much of a problem because there's not much lens in effect. In fact, if I put my probe really over the signals, so I connect the minus as well as plus, and now you can see the battery signal here. Okay, I have to put it on AC, and then you can really see that there is a little spark over this battery, and that's charging. It's a very small signal, but it's there. You can see if I make it brighter, there's quite some spikes. Not many amps, but there is some energy in there. So, but if I really show the signal, then you can see there is also. Well, anyway, the coil is generating a small current as well, but that is only at 4 or 5 volts, and very little current. Because the battery has a higher potential, there's not much current going in there. Only the spike is high enough to charge the battery. And that's why when I put only a small lamp on here, it's generating lens, because then the normal current that is running there is also involved. This is not when I charge a battery. So when I charge a battery, there's almost no lens effect. As you can see, it's now 12:47, so it is charging. And I'm not sure it's 8:44, so it's wound up as well. And the current is still a little over 1 amp. So this seems to work very well. So I think if I have enough of these units, I would be able to charge, for example, the primary battery. So at least an additional battery with the same amount, so that I can eventually should be able to get over unity or something. Because if you can eliminate or at least reduce lens, there are some possibilities. Oh, that's it. Okay. No question. Okay, now I have 3 of these magnetos mounted, and we're running for 5 or 10 minutes. We went up to 12:45 to 12:49, so it's charging. I tuned the wheel a little, and I'm now running with this configuration at 870 RPMs. And input amp of 1.12 input current, and these are my 3 spikes every round, every magnet. Every magneto is generating 3 spikes, so that looks okay. Now the final test, I have to disconnect. I hope that I don't destroy anything, but I have to disconnect the power and see what the RPMs is doing when I do that. If it's going a lot up, then I'm not right. Okay, so let's see what the RPMs are doing. Actually, it's going down. Oh, that is interesting. That is very interesting. So by wait a second. If I put, I'm a bit afraid of high voltages in spikes, so better do it right-handed. So now it's back up, and you can see the charging. It's going back to 12:49 again. Now it will be interesting. 860. Look at that. Now I didn't expect this. So now that I'm charging the battery, the RPMs is going up. So conclusion, that by getting energy from this wheel, from this generator, actually have a reverse lens, it seems. Now I'm not charging a lot here, because if I put a little 6-volt lamp, I can find it again. Where am I always my position is? Here we are. Every magneto on itself is only using this much. It's a little 6 volts, milliamps, 60 milliamps or something. It's using maybe every magneto is generating this little bit of power. But I mean, if my wheel is going faster, if I use more of these magnetos, then a lot of little ones make one big one as well. Well, very interesting. It's still charging. Thank you for watching. Okay, just to make clear what I did, I have 3 magnetos and 3 magnet sets on the wheel. Could also be done with 1, but these are 3 bridge rectifiers which rectify the signal from the magneto. The magneto has some electronics in it as well, which I do not exactly know what it is, but anyway, it's generating a spike, as I explained here before, that when it's at the highest and going back down, it's generating a spike, and the spikes I'm using to charge my 12-volt battery here. Hope this will clarify something. I connected them all together in parallel, all the bridge rectified signals, and that's it actually. Okay. 150, 1250. It's charging very slowly, but then again, like Houdini said, we don't need the current, just some voltage spikes.